Hello and welcome to tonight's training topic, the G.R.O.W coaching framework. My name's Andy Crook and I'm your host for tonight's training topic, and my mission is to help garage owners become more successful in business. How do I do that? I deliver a training topic most weeks on one of the 5 pillars of business as I see it. This training topic is in the systems pillar, and we're thinking about managing people, projects and teams using the G.R.O.W coaching framework. The G.R.O.W coaching framework is a widely used model for coaching and mentoring, designed to help individuals and teams achieve their goals and improve performance. G.R.O.W is an acronym and it stands for Goal, Reality, Options and Way Forward. So let's have a look at those in a little bit more detail. The G in G.R.O.W stands for Goal, and this is where you just define what you want to achieve. And this is all about setting your objectives, clearly defining the end goal. This can be a long-term vision, or your three-year goals, or your 1-year plan, or your 90-day objectives. It doesn't matter. You can still use this framework, whether it be your 10-year vision or your next 90-day objectives. But what you must ensure is all of your goals, visions, objectives, whatever you want to call that, are SMART. And that is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. We've done a training topic on SMART goals previously, so if you want to brush up on that, go and look for that in the guide section, or scroll down through the events and you'll probably find it. The R in G.R.O.W stands for the reality. This is your current situation, and you need to examine that to understand where you are starting from. The current situation requires you to analyze and discuss with your team, if this is a team event, the current state of affairs. And what you're looking for are barriers, enablers. And this is what you need to do to identify obstacles and opportunities as they present themselves. And this is very much from the here and now standpoint. So you're looking for what are the obstacles and what are the opportunities right now. And then you're going to use evidence and facts, and you want reliable data and concrete information to be used here to build an accurate picture of the current situation. We want to try and get away from sort of wishy-washy feelings and finger in the air projections. We want to know exactly where we are, and we want to use metrics, reliable data and concrete information so that we can build as accurate a picture as possible of the starting point. The O in G.R.O.W stands for options, and this is where we explore all the possible strategies, actions and resources required to achieve the goal. And this often starts by brainstorming, and brainstorming is just basically everything you think of, you just generate it in a list and you come up with all the possible actions and strategies that you can possibly think of to achieve your goal. And then once you've got a decent list, you can maybe refine that list a little and have a look at it. And then you're going to, once you've got that list and you've sort of refined it down a touch, you can then look at the pros and cons of that list, of all the different options and strategies. And what you're going to do is you want to evaluate all the potential advantages and disadvantages of each of those options. And the best way to do this is to carry out something called a SWOT analysis. And once again, there's a training topic already been done on SWOT analysis, so search that out if you need a brush up or you've never heard of SWOT analysis, because it's an amazing tool and it sits within this framework very, very nicely. So when you're doing your SWOT analysis, one of the things you probably want to look at is the resources and the support that are available or what is needed. And because the SWOT analysis is an internal and an external tool, so you look at internal strengths, weaknesses, and external opportunities and threats, you can look at what resources you have, what support you have, and then you can look at any information that you already have in-house, if you like, the internal stuff. But you can then also consider the external, the opportunities and threats, if you like, about resources, support and information that you may need. It's a good way of breaking that down. The W of GROW stands for way forward. Determine the specific actions and steps to take and then commit to them. What we need to come up with is an action plan, an atomic action plan. Develop a clear step-by-step plan of action. Micro steps, massive results. That's the idea. And what you want by doing the plan is you want commitment from the people taking part to ensure a strong commitment to follow through on the plan. And to do that, you probably want to determine how the progress will be tracked and how accountability will be maintained, because accountability is key as part of the action plan. Who is responsible for what by when is basically what you want to do. And this is where the using reliable data in the reality situation and metrics and real useful reliable information comes into account, because you're going to use the same data, metrics and information to determine your progress as you did to determine where you are now, the reality. And that's why using that, the R and the W at the is so important, because you need to know how you're going to track progress. And the best way to know how to track progress is use the same methodology to establish where you are now to how you're going to track progress. And that's it's a nice little link between the R and the O of the GROW framework. So you can see it's a very, very useful framework, and it can be used in many, many different ways within a garage business. I use the GROW framework, and I'll explain this in a second. When I was writing the Business of Diagnostic course about 5 years ago now, I used this exact framework to develop the diagnostic system, and I'll explain that in a sec. But typical applications are coaching and mentoring sessions, and coaches have used the GROW model to structure sessions for years, if not decades. And the reason why they use it is because it helps their clients set goals, understand their current situation, explore the options, and commit to an action plan. What's also good for is if you're doing any self-development or self-coaching, as an individual, you can even use the framework to self-coach, and you can systematically work through each step to achieve your personal or professional objectives. And it's useful for that. But it also works in a team environment. So for team development, you can still use the GROW model, but collectively to set goals, analyze performance, brainstorm solutions, and set action plans. You can use it as well for business development, because as you can see, as you can probably start to appreciate, the framework works, and it's very, very flexible because it works for all sorts of situations. And just to prove it, I use the GROW framework to come up with my diagnostic system within the Business of Diagnostic course. The G, the goal, is obvious in it. We want to know what's wrong with the vehicle. So the goal is to find out what's wrong with the vehicle. But notice it wasn't to fix the vehicle, because that's a very, very separate thing. A diagnostic, in my opinion, and this is something we talked about in the Business of Diagnostic course, is about finding out what is wrong. It's not about the repair. It's a separate task. But I took that one step further, and because it's obvious what the goal is when you're doing a diag. But what I changed the G to in my instance was gathering primary data. That's why I changed the G to, because the goal was obvious. At least I felt so. And then in the reality of the R, it was to establish the current situation, which was basically the test drive. Is the fault repeatable? Can you make the fault happen? Is it like the customer said? And that give you your current situation, and if it's also then gives you the opportunity to work out what tools you're going to need to gather data and build up a picture of the current situation. Now, you may or may not use any of those tools at this stage. It depends on the job, but you're starting to think about that. And then in the O, the options, and this is where you're going to start to explore the strategies, actions, and resources required to do the diag. And it always starts with brainstorming. So at this stage, you've probably got your primary data, which includes basic fault codes um, a visual check, a test drive, the fault is or isn't occurring, and then you've got a, a brainstorming session. And what I came up with, this is where we generated a list of the likely causes of the fault. And I always encourage people to come up with at least three, ideally four, what we then call candidates. And then you're going to evaluate the potential advantages and disadvantages of each of your candidates. And basically, what you're going to do, and this happens almost on the fly, but when you're first using the framework, you probably have to write it down. Is you're going to rank the candidates in order of likelihood. So how likely is option one, option two, and then put them in order. And then what you're going to do is then you're going to consider the resources or information sources needed to diagnose the fault. So this leans across the R and the O. And then you're going to come up with an action plan, a way forward. And that's obviously the W. And in this was which of those candidates was you going to test. Now, sometimes you don't always test the most likely. Sometimes you might test the easiest, which is where your resources and support, that options element comes in. But we come up with an action plan. You pick the candidate, and then what you're going to do is part of that action plan, and the accountability was you would know what the result was before you did the test. And we use the G.R.O.W framework to build our diagnostic system. So it works on small things, mentoring, coaching, self-development, team development, business development, and building systems within your business. It is a fantastic framework because it is so simple. But the benefits of using it are probably the obvious benefit is it provides a clear structure for thinking through problems and goals, and therefore it provides you with huge amounts of clarity. And if you are doing some mentoring or some coaching and you want to formalize it a little bit, the best thing to do is take a piece of paper and sort of fold it in half and then half again. So you've quartered the piece of paper and write G.R.O.W in it. So you've got your G, your R, and your O, and your W, and then just make notes. It's that simple. And that's one of the ways in which I use it. But it also helps you maintain focus on the key objectives and actionable steps. One of the things the G.R.O.W framework does is it provides that focus, because you can just look at, is what I'm doing taking me closer to my goal? What is my current situation? What are my options? And how am I moving forward? And if you think about the accountability step in the action plan, that empowerment encourages individuals to take ownership of goals and actions required to achieve them. And then finally, as we've seen with the diagnostic example, it's hugely flexible. It can be adapted to various contexts and types of goals, from personal development to business strategy. It is that flexible, from the smallest thing to the biggest thing. So what I want to do now is I want to use an example, and the example I'm going to use is an appraisal, and I'm going to sort of go through a little story where let's see if you can see where the G.R.O.W framework is being used. So Mark, the manager, leaned back in his office chair. He was observing Tom, one of his most promising technicians, who was having his annual appraisal. Tom fidgeted with a pen. His eyes darted round the room. So, Tom, Mark began, you mentioned wanting to pursue your master technician qualification. That's a big step. Tom nodded, his posture straightening with interest. That's right, but where do I start? Where is the first step? Mark always used the G.R.O.W framework during appraisals to help keep the conversation focused. Mark smiled. Let's start with the goal. What is it exactly you want to achieve? I want to become a certified master technician within the next 2 years, Tom replied confidently. Excellent, Mark said. Now let's look at the reality of your current situation. Where are you in terms of skills and qualification? Tom began listing his certifications and experience. As he spoke, Mark noticed him relaxing, his initial nervousness fading as he focused on his accomplishments. That's a solid foundation, Mark nodded. Now let's explore your options. What are all the possible paths you could take to reach your goal? Tom's eyes lit up as he started brainstorming. Well, there's the manufacturer-specific training programs, but I could also look into the advanced diagnostic courses, or maybe I should specialize in hybrid and electric vehicles. Oh, and there's that new program on advanced driver assistance systems. Mark grinned, seeing the spark of enthusiasm in Tom's eyes. Great ideas. You've clearly given this some thought. Now let's consider the way forward. Which of these options do you think will be most effective? Tom pondered for a moment. I don't know. I don't even know how I'll pay for it. What about the time off? Am I even up to it? It was a lot to consider, and Tom wasn't prepared. Mark noticed Tom become less assured and even a little uncomfortable, so he leaned forward, his expression serious but encouraging. Your first step needs to be a SWOT analysis of the various options. Can you do that by this time next week? Remember, becoming a master technician isn't just about technical skills. It's about leadership, problem solving, and continuous learning. How do you plan to develop those areas? Tom thought for a moment. Maybe I could mentor some junior techs. And I'll be sure to stay updated on the latest automotive technologies. Good thinking, Mark nodded. See, you're not just planning to pass exams, you're planning to truly embody what it means to become a master technician. As Tom left the office, his steps were lighter, his posture more confident. Tom saw the change in him, a technician transforming into a future leader. Mark smiled to himself. This is why he loved being a manager. It's not just about overseeing the repairs, but nurturing talent and watching his team members grow into their full potential. He knew that Tom's journey to master technician status would not only benefit Tom, but would evaluate the entire workshop team. So you can see that the G.R.O.W framework, in this case, using it as a part of an appraisal, kept the conversation focused. It allowed Tom to explain what he wanted to do, set his own personal goals, but it also allowed Mike to set an actionable step, and it was specific. He needs to do some SWOT analysis on the various options by a week's time. So you can see how it can work just by using that example. So the atomic action from the G.R.O.W coaching framework is simply this. Could you consider using the G.R.O.W framework as a coaching tool within your business? If not a coaching tool, could you use it as a planning tool? Or could you use it as a framework for developing your systems? If I've made you think about using the G.R.O.W framework or running your business in general, then I've done my job. If not, let me know and I'll try better next time. Thanks very much. Take care.